hey, we are now joined by Veronica Freeman of Benedictum and, of course, the brand new solo album. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic now that I'm talking to you.
Well, we are so excited to share this great music with all the music lovers out there. And I know you've got a nice run with the band and a whole new chapter of your life. But take us back to the beginning. When did you start singing or making music yourself, and who were your musical heroes that really inspired you to do so?
You're talking about way back when?
Oh, yeah, we're talking the beginning.
Oh, my God.
The source.
Yikes. Honestly, never thought that I was going to be singing. Both of my parents were artists. Like, my dad would paint, and then he was like a technical graphic artist before there was all this desktop publishing type of stuff. And my mom was very artistic, and I took dance and stuff like that when I was little and all that kind of stuff. So I figured I would do something more along those lines. And actually, it was my friend Craig Goldie that got me to start singing and got me into metal. And, of course,
the great Craig Goldie from Dio fame.
Yes, and he was the one that was like, oh, you got to check out this band, and you got to check this guy out, and that turned out to be Dio, and you should be listening to this, and why don't you try this? And the first song that I ever sang, just like trying to sing it, was Mistreated. Now, it's funny because I was just talking with Dave Feinstein about that the other day when we were doing this thing with the rods. So,
sure.
In any case, that's kind of went from there, and then I kind of put it down for a while, and then I thought, well, I really enjoy singing, and over the years, and way back when, I wanted to put together my own band, being the headstrong individual that I am, and that turned out to be Benedictum at the end of the day, after many years and all of that.
Sure.
And Craig had always told me that, if you have something come up that I could possibly help you with, let me know. And then when he had heard a couple of different things, and it was like, oh, okay, we'll try again. And then when he heard what is now Benedictum, then that's when he put me in touch with Jeff Pilson, and then, as you know, Jeff produced the first two albums, and then we kind of went from there. So, and then that leads us to Frontiers. After Locomotive went under, we didn't have a label, yada, yada, and that was still when you kind of wanted to have one. Nowadays, I don't know. I see a lot of people putting stuff out. There's so much stuff out there.
Yeah.
Overflooded, actually.
Right.
My unsolicited.
Everybody and their sister's got music, but the cream still rises. But you really got to go out and beat the drum to let them know what you got.
You really do. You really do. It's a different animal now. But that being said, they were like, well, they were in L.A. And I had never met them, and we had already done the Dominion album. Pardon me. And I had, when you only know someone, I'm one of those people person. So I want to get your energy and read your eyes and see where you're coming from type of thing. And I knew they were going to be in Los Angeles, so I went out, took a road trip out there and met them. They were pretty cool. And I got an audience with them. And then they offered me a solo thing, which I was kind of blown away, but it was very conditional. So it was like, look, we think that you have another side to your voice. We would like to hear it. We don't want it to be watered down Benedictum. It needs to be its own thing.
Yeah.
And we don't want it to be as aggressive, and we'd like to hear it more. We'd like it more melodic, which I think they were kind of hoping for. After Dominion, they personally didn't like that one so much. I liked Dominion because I thought it was definitely kind of going into a little bit different territory for us, but it was too modern and aggressive for them for what they wanted to do. So I think they were a little bit worried about it. So we had another album with them for Benedictum, and then they offered me the solo thing, which had to be definitely distinct from that. So then we kind of went from there, and the original proposition was that they were going to provide the songs and all of that, but I didn't want anyone to have complete creative control over what I did, so I talked them into a different scenario, which was that Pete and I have had all kinds of music that we would joke about anyway. We'd go to practice and start playing this more poppy-type stuff or more melodic stuff, and everyone else would roll their eyes, and we would say to each other, one day, we're going to do this. And so now we had a chance to do this because he is the co-writer on almost half of the stuff on the album. So that's how that all worked out. It's taken a long time, but it's finally there.
Wow. Well, we know Craig Goldie's amazing story of, Ronnie James Dio basically finding him homeless, when he gave him his start. Craig was down on his luck, and, Ronnie gave him that shot, and look what Craig, has been able to do. Do you have any Ronnie James Dio stories? Did you get to meet the man?
Absolutely. Oh, I'm glad you asked. And then this kind of ties into what's going on right now, which is kind of very special to me. Other than the fact that I have always loved his music, and on the first Benedictum album, while he was still with us, I still felt the desire to do. I always had wanted to do Heaven and Hell. I loved that song. And then Mob Rules got on there. That was a fluke because it was supposed to be just a bonus track and not actually make the album. But I'm glad that I had a chance to do that while he was still with us, so it wasn't just like, let's go on, everybody seems to be doing that, which is fine. It's great because he's so amazing that who wouldn't want to carry that forward and keep that alive. But in any case, just before that time, it was just before the first Benedictum record came out, that Craig and I had reconnected. It's one of those friendships where you've known each other for a long time, but you go through long periods of time of just you don't even speak to each other, and all of a sudden you reconnect and you don't miss a beat type of thing. And so he asked if I wanted to come by. I went to, he invited me to one of their New Year's Eve parties, and that's where I had a chance, for the first time I met, he introduced me to Jeff Pilson, which was great. And then after that, he was like, well, we're going on this tour, and it was Iron Maiden, Motorhead, and Dio. And that was, he's like, you can come with us on 3 of those dates. So I went over there and had a chance to meet Ronnie. I was, really had a chance to meet him and sit down and talk with him. And I don't have any pictures or anything like that. It's just I have those memories in my head. And that's when I had my cool little Jeep. I loved my little Jeep Wrangler. And I followed their little tour bus thing. It was Irvine, Long Beach, Long Beach, Irvine, and then San Diego. And then went to each of the shows and was hanging back there with them and stuff. And it was a fantastic experience. He was so gracious. Everyone was really nice to me. It was great, and I'll never ever ever forget that. It's just ingrained in my head. So yeah, I have very very fond memories. How he touched people, how he touched me emotionally too. Just sitting next to him, because I had this particular vision in my head, with all this stuff with Holy Diver and the devil and all this kind of stuff, because I had all that stuff. And then to actually meet him, to a wonderful person and warm and genuine. And then the way he performed, I learned a lot from that too. And the way that he just exuded such emotion and passion for the music. And that's why people still do what they do now, still playing his stuff and giving reverence to that which is damn near sacred.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what we fall in love with as a fan is that emotion and that communication of, one's personality. And, you do it, Ronnie did it. I mean, it's just what we live for. And I know you also had the opportunity to play with some great people on those early records. I know Jimmy Bain from the original Rainbow also played with you.
Yeah.
And, of course, Jeff Pilson is so multi-talented. Of course, he's in Foreigner now, and years with Dokken and Dio and all that. And you've, had a great collaboration. What is it about Jeff that makes him so talented and such a pleasure to collaborate with?
There are some people that just have it, and he has it. When you meet him in person, you feel it. And when you get to see how he operates, we used to joke about he gets so involved. There is that part of his personality that when it's keyed into music, everything else shuts off, and he is in that creative mode. And I used to literally would do this. Your house is on fire. House is burning down. Don't you smell the smoke? And he wouldn't hear me. He wouldn't hear anything. And he just that focused. And to see him turn around, on the keyboards 1 second, picking up acoustic guitar the other second, picking up a bass guitar another moment, picking up the electric guitar another moment, changing this, doing that, and then doing vocals with me on one moment. It was, for me, the best way to ever start creating an album is to be with somebody who's also very patient. I mean, he knew what he wanted, but, he would dial it back because I was new to it and all that kind of stuff. So it was arduous at times, but it was so much fun. He's so much fun to work with, and just to watch him do his thing, that in and of itself was absolutely fascinating. For someone that just has that within them, so much music in them.
Yeah.
And that's what he has. So, and then what he brought to the Foreigner table when we would go see them play. Yeah. Pardon me, I'm cooking. And then what he brought to that table was fantastic, what he's done for us. So and even on this solo record, I mean, he's on a few of the tracks there, and I miss working with him that closely. But I think all of us that did have a chance to work with him took a lot away from that, and have kept that piece with us and learned a lot in the process.
Well, he definitely exudes that positive energy and has that, melodic music sense flowing through him. And, I know you've collaborated with some great people like Doro and George Lynch. The great Rudy Sarzo played on your record, and, so many great things. But let's get to the new album.
Okay.
And it's an amazing lineup of people that have stepped forth to join you. So you're operating under the name The V, and the album Now or Never. Talk about, the whole process, how this came together. I know John Herrera produced it with help by Kenny Lewis, and of course you got the song with Michael Sweet. But tell us how, we know how Frontiers, encouraged you to do this, but how did the process go as far as starting to write the songs, and how did some of these great people step up?
Oh, I don't know how long your show is. But you have to realize this was a long process, and I am not good at making things concise, but I shall try. Originally, we were going to do the Obey record and my record at the same time with the same producer type of thing. But because there was more of a clear-cut definition of what a Benedictum record should sound like. So for John and everyone else, it was not as difficult or not as much of a stretch to know what kind of sound and how to develop the songs and all of that. I would have liked to have seen a little more specific input from Frontiers as far as what they wanted. I had a feel for what they wanted, but it was hard for me to articulate that to John at times because we were in just different territory. Being told, well, it just can't be revamped Benedictum leaves open a very, very wide range of possibilities. So what can it be? And when you're in the studio and have a limited budget and are trying to distill that down, it was difficult to come to an agreement as far as what is this vibe going to be. That being said, John worked very, very hard, worked with me a lot to change. I mean, after all these years of having a certain vocal approach to, you got the headphones on and he's telling me, that was, you're doing Benedictum. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm doing, me. Nope, that approach was Benedictum. I need you to lay back and try it again. So that was very hard for me, but I'm glad that he had the patience to pull me through that. So we had turned in the masters at one point, and I didn't hear anything, and there were some things I really wanted to change. It wasn't heavy enough for me. But then, of course, we weren't sure. It was difficult. You didn't know really where to go type of thing. So then the opportunity came that they were going to delay the release anyway. So I had a chance to go in. I said, well, I hope you don't mind, but, what do you think? And the label and I discussed it, and they I was very happy that they agreed with me that we wouldn't mind it being a little more this way or that way. And then that led me on this journey to where it is now. And during that time, Uh, I had a chance to work with Kenny Lewis from Mixed Emotion Studios, and I had a song from back from when we were doing the Obey album from Tony Martin that he and I wanted to do, but it just didn't make the Obey record, and I wanted to do that song. I really, really liked it. So we went ahead and recorded that, and Michael Sweet came into the picture because of Kenny, and that was definitely probably one of the most scariest things for me because I'd never met him. I had great respect for him. He pretty much told me, you're not going to get any rough mixes or anything. I'm used to working with, if I'm collaborating with someone, well, you send me a rough of what we're looking at, and I get an idea so I can come in prepared. It's like, well, if we're going to do this, I'm really busy. You need to come out. I won't have anything for you until you're here, and then we go in the studio and we do it. That was terrifying for me. So that's
it's kind of like flying without a net.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what happened. Went out there, met him, the beautiful thing was I had a chance to at least meet him because they had a show here in Phoenix just like 2 nights after we had talked. I'm like, I don't believe it, you're going to be here. So some of these things just fall into place. So I went backstage, had a chance to shake his hand, and we agreed we were going to do this, and I'm like, okay, because I'll write and perform on 2 songs. And that he did. You come out to Boston, we'll make it happen. But I don't have the kind of time to send you roughs and blah, blah. I'll be working on this, and then by the time you get here, I'll be ready. And he was. And that's what happened. And then we did part of it at one studio and the rest of it at Kenny's studio. And I really, it brought that element I was looking for as a bar, so to speak, for the rest of the album. And then we had to go in and change some things on the rest of the album so that there wouldn't be such a disparity, a difference in styles, so to speak, and not just sonically, because you have something that's recorded at one place with somebody in a certain way and then the rest somewhere else, and sonically it needed to be more cohesive. So we had to go back and redo some things, and which gave me a chance. It gave me that chance to make it more reflective of what I really wanted for my first solo album. So even though it seemed frustrated and I was in tears a lot, it was a journey I'm very, very glad that had to happen because it led me to the record that I have now, which I'm a lot happier about.
Sure. And, of course, we know Tony Martin from his work with Black Sabbath. Tell us about how that duet was, constructed. What were the elements of both your voices that you were really looking for?
Well, what had happened was when we were doing the Obey album, I had reached out to him because we were friends on Facebook and all of that. So he's like, okay. And Pete Wells had written the song Cry, which is on the Obey album. And Tony what I appreciate about Tony is he's just not like, okay, I'm a hired gun. It's like he very much is he takes his time and he chooses what he wants to do. So it wasn't like, okay, yeah, you've got to pay me this much. It was like, let me check it out first and let me let you know if I'm even interested. So I sent him about 3 or 4 different songs. I had a different one in mind completely, but he wanted to do that song. And then during our negotiations, he was very, very hands-on, which I thought was cool because he went into his own little studio, added some orchestral parts to certain things, made some suggestions that I thought were great that made that song better. And then during our correspondence, he's like, I've got this other song which I totally fell in love with, and that was King for a Day. And it was not originally a duet. So what we did, we worked it out to where, this could be a duet, and we just changed the perspective of some of the verses. And I had wanted that on the Benedictum album, but the label didn't want that on there. So I was like, okay. And then we ended up doing it for this one, and it worked out. I kind of snuck that one under the radar because I was afraid they were going to say no, but it came out. It's one of my favorites. I really like that one. And I just love the tone of his voice anyway. So to go in there, how you do things now, I had his vocal tracks, and then I added my vocal tracks, and then I had to have, of course, the music and everything redone. So we did that also we were in Boston, and Kenny Lewis produced that one, so that was great.
And you have a female duet with Leather Leone from Chastain. Talk about how that came together and how the blending of two female vocals work.
Oh my God, she's so amazing. She's become one of my best friends. Even though I need to give her a call. She was supposed to be on the Dominion album, believe it or not. It's kind of weird how just when it's time, it's time. It just wasn't time yet. She had reached out to me back when she was considering getting back into singing again, and I was like, girl, you really need to do that. And we talked for a while. We had this crazy conversation, and she had too much wine, and I was cracking up the whole time. It was great. Then it was like, look, why don't you come out here? I've got something for you. So some time had passed. She came out, and she hung out with John and I, and we all went. We had a crazy, crazy time. It was like being in a frat house. It was fabulous. And I just love her voice because I think it's powerful and unique. It's not like the same cookie-cutter type female voice. It's got balls to it. I love it. It's got something to it. And she's a lot of fun. So she came out, and we did that track, and then a lot of the music for that got a little bit reworked and stuff too. But I absolutely adore her. We actually did a few shows together last year, and we get along really well, and I like that. I like the camaraderie that we have and what she brings to the table musically and as a person. So that was a lot of fun, and I hope to be able to do that live with her, in the future.
Well, it's an amazing album. You've got so many great songs, and not only Jeff Pilson and Michael Sweet, but you have, Gary from The Rods and Jerry Dixon from Warrant, Jimmy Durkin from Dark Angel,
Yeah.
Nick Tucker from Tank, Mike LaPon from Symphony X. I mean, an all-star lineup. It's an amazing record. Are there plans to do solo shows?
Yes. I have to say something just because it needs to be said. That, you read this lineup, but none of that came about easily. All of this, at one point or another, there were these big tumultuous times when stuff wasn't going right, and I really want to give a special thank you to everybody who stepped up, especially in the last minute. A big shout-out to Peter Tintendo, who is a fantastic guitar player. Obviously to Pete Wells, because he's written some really great songs, and he's my right arm and all of that. But Jimmy Durkin, when we're talking about the 11th hour, I mean, this isn't right, and there were just some issues with some things that needed to be cleared up. And to have somebody, he was like my champion. He put on his cape. We call him the Cape Crusader now because he put on his cape, got a hold of Mick, and the two of them just got to it and made sure that I had the right kind of tracks and vibe and stuff that I need in order to complete some of these songs. So and then Gary, everybody, Mike LaPond, of course. I'm going to see him next week. I can't wait. So just so many people that stepped up, and it wasn't like this was all planned out. It was like, oh my God, this is happening now. Let's make it like the perils of Penelope pit stop or something. But I'm very grateful.
Well, it's a great sounding record. We look forward to spreading the word, playing it all the time on the show here. But with all the years in the business and all that you've seen and experienced, what advice do you give to the young singers, the young bands coming up today? I know the business side of everything is constantly evolving, but creatively, what advice do you give them to not only help them take risks and create their own, unique sound, but the perseverance and dedication it takes these days, like you say, to stand out of the clutter?
Okay, that's a good question. First of all, from a business standpoint, do have good people behind you. And what I mean is an attorney that put some money aside for that if you're going to go down certain roads as far as like signing anything. These days it's very, very different. God forbid, please don't skimp on whatever you're doing as far as a production. There are so many people that, I did an album, in your home studio. The home studio is like the thing now. That's great. But make sure that you have a mastery of what you're doing in it. Because there really is a sonic difference between someone who has had something professionally produced and someone who has not. Don't be afraid to be unique. That's something that Craig used to tell me all the time, because my voice is not operatic. My voice doesn't sound always, like anybody else that much, and I was kind of self-conscious about that. But actually, it was refreshing. It's very refreshing to me to hear stuff that is somewhat different when there's so much out there that sounds the same. Also, the mindset of, and I know there's still people that have that, especially non-musicians, though. When you watch either VH1 or something like that, and you see how it used to be, quote unquote, as far as the rock star and the money and the this and the that, very few artists, even ones that are of great import or who have a large name, they're just not making the money that they used to, and the whole system has changed. So make sure that you're in it for the love of the game, because you may have to sacrifice a lot more. It takes money to get out there. A lot of times, be fiscally smart about stuff. Look at how you can possibly make money here and there, because you probably won't get a lot of money for your actual performance. And don't be afraid to diversify into other things so that you can keep doing that which you love.
And as far as the tenacity and the dedication it takes, like I say, it's wise words that you're not going to make, quick money. But so many of the greats have been rejected so many times and hadn't quite seen the light at the end of the tunnel, but kept persevering. And, that break all of a sudden came. And, of course, to a lot of people that didn't know, they think it's an overnight success. But to those behind the scenes know that they took a lot of rejection. They persevered beyond what a normal person would withstand.
Yes.
So give them a tip on that never say die attitude.
Well, it may not be the tip that you hear. There has to be that you want to hear, but there's two things. There's shooting for the stars, and there's keeping one foot on the ground. You have to be realistic, and you have to be willing to take other people's not so much criticism, but don't be afraid to have other people listen to your stuff first, because you may be very enamored with it, but it may not be that great. That's just how it is. And then there's a difference between truly believing in what you're doing, and if you truly do, then you may not mind tweaking it a little bit here and there. Be willing to listen to other people who have gone before you, so to speak, and understand that you are going to have a lot of people, especially in relationships, that won't understand, that'll tell you this, why do you keep doing this? Don't you get it? You're not going to go anywhere. Because believe me, I've heard that. And it depends on where your anywhere is. What do you define as what is your goal personally? For me, I want to get out there and have fun. I want to perform, and as long as I can do that, and I want people to enjoy my music, and I want to enjoy it. To have some pie in the sky, I'm going to make $10 million. I mean, that's fine, and if you do, give me some. But, you're going to have to be with people that not necessarily believe in your dream, but believe or support the fact that you have it and that you will do just about anything to attain it. Because that right there is hard to find. I've seen so many male and female wonderful musicians, people with great talent, but you fall in love, or you get with somebody, you have your friends or whatever it is, that I don't want to say drag you down, but the naysayers like, oh, this is ridiculous, and why do you keep doing that? I would say keep an open mind and listen to some of the things that they have to say, because there could be some real good nuggets of wisdom there. But if it's someone that's constantly tearing you down and breaking you down, then you need to be elsewhere, because sooner or later you'll break and fold and, oh, man, I can't do this anymore because – and then inside you will never forgive yourself. And it's a sacrifice you're going to have to be willing to make, because you may not have that particular type of relationship you thought you were going to have. And that's the real end of it. It's got to do with more of the relationship part, whether it be girlfriend, boyfriend, friends, coworkers. You know, it's all good when you're on stage and they can go, oh, that's great, I'm going to buy a T-shirt. It's not so all good when you have to practice or go to rehearsals where you can't spend as much time or you're going to be gone. You can't give them the attention that they want. It's a completely different animal then. So you got to be prepared for that.
Well, those are wise words to live by, and you heard it straight from Veronica the V. Freeman, the album July 3rd, Now or Never. Thank you so much for joining us. We can't wait to see you perform this live, and we'll keep spreading the word on an outstanding album.
Thank you so much, and I'm glad you like it. You have a wonderful, wonderful day.